This discussion starter is the second in a series and is in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 12 through 2, verse 4. So, when we communicate, how important is it that we measure our words and how we do things? When I think of one passage, Paul talks about walking circumspectly. He really has taken some time to think about how to represent Christ the best. And I think that's part of the reason that he doesn't keep his word. This passage is because he's decided not to come back to Corinth from Macedonia. Instead, he's decided to go on his way. The reasons behind it are listed are in this passage, but will come to be much more plain as we go through 2 Corinthians. He ends this passage by saying, "For I wrote you out of great distress and anguish of heart with many tears, not to grieve you, but to let you know the depth of my love for you." It's obvious that Paul has some strong words for the church in Corinth. It's sort of derailed in the way that he wanted it to go, and he's got a lot of effort to put forth to try to get it back on course again. But he also has a great love for the congregation and wants to see it thrive. In the midst of that, he's decided it's best to represent Christ through a letter. And that's the writing of 2 Corinthians. Remember, the 1 Corinthians had a lot to do with their divisive nature, individuals in the church that were causing trouble, and how they were supposed to do things, and they'd sort of gotten off on tangents. This letter is going to be addressing some of those things in a different, in a way that he hopes they understand and know. I believe Paul is trying to help us understand that when we live our lives in the midst of a world that's not coming through for Christ, and sometimes even we feel like our church isn't coming through for Christ, can we live like Paul and say, it's less important for me to keep my integrity as far as keeping an appointment, and more important for me to keep my integrity with the message that I share from Jesus Christ? Obviously, Paul was perplexed and had a lot of emotional energy that needed to be shared, but a letter was a better way to do it. And he could write it down and edit it and maybe make 2 or 3 edits if he needs to. He could share it with friends and get their editorial comments so that he could actually share a letter that has not only the passion behind it that he wanted, but maybe doesn't carry all the emotion that could be negative to the congregation at Corinth. So his not keeping the appointment, though it was very important for him to do so, and it felt he recognizes that, he'd rather give up keeping the appointment and speak clearly the message he was given by Christ than to keep the appointment and maybe blow his integrity with the congregation. In the circles that you walk, how are you keeping your integrity, the integrity of your message, the message that you're bringing from Jesus Christ? How are you watching that integrity so that people will receive Jesus Christ in the message that you bring? I think it's time for us to think about it.